In this video, I will be introducing my attempt at Vlogust 2023. But first, I'm going to go for a wee little walk to clear my noggin. And you can come with me. I just got back to my car. I went for my little walk. It's one of my quick routes, about 20-25 minutes. And I am a hot mess, but that's okay, because that's part of this whole vlogging thing, is you just do whatever it is that you're doing at the time and then post it on the internet. I'm totally going to turn my car around because the light really dwindled, and I think the other direction will be better. So I won't look so pasty, or it won't work at all. We'll see. Oh, that's already an improvement. Okay. I can actually back into the space and make it in between the lines. Close enough. Not a vast improvement, but I think it's slightly better. So what is Vlogust, you might be asking yourself, even though I'm sure most of you probably know. Essentially, it's where you vlog every day, or as much as possible, within the month of August. It's pretty self-explanatory. Sort of like Vlogmas, but the summer edition. I had mentioned previously I wanted to try vlogging a little bit more on my channel, just to see what happens. Vlogging can be very spontaneous, and I'm a very spontaneous person, so this will either be some of the most boring content I ever create on my channel, or it'd be really cool and I could come up with some good stuff, or it could fall somewhere between point A and point B and be a little mix of the two, which is what it most likely will inevitably be. Maybe. My intention for this is to film a little something every day, even if it's just like a couple of minutes, but I most likely won't post every day because that's a lot, and I am not going to have enough time for that, I don't think. For those of you who might be new to my channel, I work in public education. I don't start seeing students until September 5th, but I'm counting my first day back at work as August 7th, just because I'm supposed to be doing a side project and I need to get stuff ready for my own main job that I have. So August 7th is when I'm kind of starting to get back into that work mentality. Even though I won't be seeing kids, I'll still be kind of in that zone. So probably not a lot of time, but I can at least film a little something probably every day, and I'll most likely end up uploading maybe 2 or 3 days at a time. We'll see how it goes. I might get, rather proficient at this whole thing and maybe be able to upload every day, but doubtful. I've also seen an acronym for Vlogust, but instead of it's VEDA, VEDA. So video every day in August. It just doesn't have the same ring as Vlogust. So I'm going to stick with Vlogust because I just like the phonetics of Vlogust. So if you've read the title, I have 3 little mini items on the agenda for this first one. And item number 1 is low buy. Low buy August, it's happening across the board. All my variable spending, stuff that's not bills. I'm just intending to spend as little as possible on all of those variable expenses this month. Groceries, gas, eating out, personal care, household supplies, all of those miscellaneous personal spending, all of that stuff that's not fixed, I will be cutting back. May, June, and July were really humbling and sober reminders of how easy it is for me to spend money when I'm stressed. And it happened. May and June are my 2 busiest months of the year, just because school is winding down. It's always just absolute chaos happening around me. And this year was even more so because this was my son's senior year and he graduated high school. So we had all that going on. So my stress levels were high and there was a lot of spending as a result. And I honestly really didn't even realize I was doing it mostly at the time until about mid-July. It kind of caught up with me and I really started to look at what I was doing and I was like, oh yeah, this has got to get reined in. So I really started trimming back from that moment, and then into August is going to be this big challenge in frugality, which I'm actually kind of looking forward to, because I think back to my pocket money challenges that I did in January, February, March, and April, and how good I felt about pretty much everything. And I felt very grounded and settled. That's another thing I'm going to talk about in just a minute. I don't know about you all out there, but summer anxiety is real. Summer is actually my least favorite season. It kind of always has been, which is really ironic considering I get a large chunk of time off in the summer because I work in education. But I don't do well with heat as a whole, unless it's like really, really dry heat. Dry heat I can do, but anything where the humidity is like over 70%, I start not feeling my best. And I live in an area that's extremely damp all the time. Even when it's summer, it's still damp. It's August 1st today, and there was a full moon. And full moons are also anxiety provoking for me. I tend to not do that great during full moons. I feel very agitated inside. Not always, but just kind of as a whole. Full moons and I don't always see eye to eye. So we're approaching the peak of summer and it's a full moon. So this is the closest full moon to what I consider midsummer or the peak of summer cross quarter, in the Northern Hemisphere where I live. And so it's been a lot just kind of culminating, and it's just making its presence known, and stuff is just manifesting all at the same time. It's not healthy, productive energy for me, and I'm ready for it to go away, honestly. August tends to be a little bit more mellow for me than like late June and July. July is not a good month for me, really. It never has been, and this year exceptionally so, which I will talk about on another day. Yeah, really not feeling July this year at all, which is the one month where I have the entirety of work off. Actually, this year I didn't technically because I went to a work conference, but I don't really count that just because it was almost enjoyable. So in a way it wasn't like I was at work. I was engaging in a learning experience with my colleagues and making plans for how we can implement what we learned. So it was good and productive. So I don't really count that as work. August starts to be a little bit more mellow just because we're beginning to approach the autumnal equinox, which is when I start almost feeling normal again. Things are starting, even though my school year is starting, energetically for me, things start calming down. It's not as warm. September can actually be really warm where I live, but energetically it's just different. So I'll see how I feel kind of this first week in August. But August usually starts mellowing out a little bit, but we'll see. But yeah, July is just not, no. So low buy, summer anxiety to the max. And I have been drawn to elemental practices and elemental work for as long as I can remember. I use the elements very highly in tarot and in other divination practices and other energy and magic practices that I engage in. The elements are always there. They're always a thing. I've really been feeling a call to really engage with those elemental practices again, particularly because for me personally, my belief is that we all have an inner embodiment of each of the elements. So we all have an inner earth, an inner air, an inner fire, and an inner water, and an inner ether, actually. This is just my perspective, but I've really been feeling that my inner earth has been neglected. My inner air and my inner water have been off the charts, and not in a good way, like overactive and not balanced at all. My inner fire actually has been more of kind of a steadier kind of just little ebb and flow, kind of like that. So the fire's been a little more consistent, but my inner earth feels so underactive, almost repressed. I think repressed is the word I would use. I do not feel grounded. I do not feel steady. I do not feel comfortable in my own body right now, which is highly unusual for me. I've also realized that I haven't engaged in my walking practice on a regular basis in months. It's been months that since I've been outside regularly in the woods, walking around my town, just being outside and connecting with nature in some capacity. It's been months since I've done that regularly, and I'm feeling it. And I think back to my pocket money challenges and when I was doing my personal spending low buys, and how good I felt within myself. I felt grounded. I felt steady. I felt stable. My inner earth was really balanced. And I proceeded to go through the rest of my school year, and things got chaotic and nuts, and I started spending too much. I started eating too much. That's another thing. Most of my excess spending, before I really kind of honed in on it, it wasn't on stuff like physical, tangible items. It was on food and food related experiences. And honestly, that's where the majority of my excess spending went. And as a whole, I'm a pretty moderate eater. I don't tend to overdo or underdo. I do practice intermittent fasting, but I do it in a healthy and kind of calculated way. I've always had this healthy balance with food, and it was really strange. Over the last few months, I just felt myself going out of control with that, and it startled me in a way that I was not okay with. Part of bringing my inner earth back into balance is being aware of my intake of food and how I'm approaching food, because I don't have a problem with food and eating as a whole. That's never been a thing. It runs heavily in my family, and so I've always been aware that it's something to keep an eye on, just because I really feel for me that could manifest at any given time. And this was the first inkling of that I have had in years and years. I don't like the direction it's going. I've really started to bring it back to what are normal patterns for me. Mid to late July was a good start for me, and I'm feeling a lot more centered in that regard. My inner earth is a focus for me this month in August. And I think that with doing the low buy, going on my walks, being aware of my food intake, all of those physical, material, earthy things, I really think that's going to help bring that back into balance and have a little bit more of a steady. I think the eating might have been an overactive response to the repressed feeling that I have been experiencing. And so, because food is very earthy, it's our body requires it for nourishment. And I think my stability and my grounding, it was in such a repressive state that food just kind of became a way to maybe activate it again, but it went too far. So bringing all of that back into balance, I feel, is really going to help me. So the low buy, summer anxiety, working on that and getting back in touch with my inner earth and bringing that back into balance to a point where I feel good in my body again. Those are priorities for this entire month. And so I figure I would just bring all those out of the gate right off the bat for day one. I don't know how long this is actually going to end up being, but I've filmed like over 20 minutes of footage, and that's way longer than I intended. My intention for this was to keep things relatively short. I say that all the time. It never happens because I start talking and I don't know how to stop. I think that my overactive air and water as well is somewhat of a result of me kind of bottling it, because I haven't been very expressive as far as talking about how I'm feeling mentally and emotionally. And so I think this, talking about it out loud, might help bring that overactivity that's all happening inside, bring that back down to healthy levels, just by maybe talking about it and saying it out loud. So the whole idea of this is to sort of, try and sort of, they're never going to be perfectly even all the time, but just, maybe a little bit closer to center than they have been. I've talked long enough. I'm going to go now. This probably won't even get uploaded on the 1st because it's 9:04 Pacific Standard Time and ain't nobody got time for that. So this will most likely be up on the 2nd. Oh, and I will still be doing other videos, like just regular subject-specific videos in addition to vlogging. So I do intend to still put those out. Until my next vlog, take care and be well.